The storm had burned itself out over Charleston by the time Alexis Harper guided her pearl gray Tesla into the quiet parking bay behind Le Marin Brasserie. The late spring air still clung to rain, smelling of salt and magnolias, and inside the restaurant the first customers were shaking umbrellas and asking for hot chowder. Alexis never announced who she was. People usually guessed when they glimpsed the discreet bodyguard waiting in the car, or when the maitre d' addressed her as Dr. Harper with reverence. But tonight she hoped even that much attention would drift elsewhere. She had come for a promise, not for oysters. A slim boy of 7 slipped from the passenger door as soon as she opened it. He was paler than Alexis by several shades, favored his late father's Irish complexion, and tonight he wore a moth-gray cardigan buttoned all the way to his throat. The boy's name was Ethan, and Ethan could not hear the crash of pots or the cello looped through the sound system inside Le Marin. He gripped a small slate and chalk in one hand, his alphabet when lips failed. Alexis squeezed his shoulder. "We're safe? I'm right here," then took him through the brass-framed doorway. The hostess offered the corner banquette that draped under a window, the very place Alexis favored for its sightline to both exits. Ethan traced letters on his slate. "Ocean?" Alexis read and nodded. Yes, they could see the harbor lights if he knelt on the bench, tiny glimmers winking through glass and gas lamps and damp Spanish moss. Ethan tapped the slate twice for thanks, then folded into himself, waiting to order tomato bisque. On the opposite side of the dining room, a 30-something busser in an untucked white shirt dragged a tray of glasses toward the scullery. Daniel O'Connor was taller than anyone expected of a dishwasher, towhead, with the lithe strength of someone who spent more hours lifting crates than lifting dreams. He glanced up when he passed the banquette, pure habit, checking for plates, and his gaze snagged on Ethan's fluttering hands. One heartbeat, two, and Daniel nearly collided with a server carrying creme brulee. The server hissed. Daniel muttered an apology, continued back of house. But the image of the boy signing spiraled across his thoughts like chalk dust. Alexis skimmed the menu, though she already knew every entree. She felt the brasseries chatter the way a diver feels the ocean through a wet suit, muffled, pressurized, ready to burst. She held her composure. Still, when 2 teenagers darted past the table and never thought to wave at Ethan, she clenched her jaw. Money protected her son from hurricanes of a certain kind. Private tutors, specialized audiology, security consultation, but wealth could not buy the simple currency of being noticed. The waiter took their order, mispronounced Alexis's surname even after she corrected him twice, then hurried away. Ethan drew the outline of a skiff on his slate, added billowing sails, then sketched a stick figure steering. Alexis smiled and pretended not to feel the tightness behind her ribs. Her husband, Sean O'Donnell, had once sketched wooden boats in precisely that way before cancer threaded through his body. Sean had asked Alexis to promise 2 things. Keep Harper biogen-ethical and keep Ethan's worldwide. She was failing at the second promise, and she felt it with each oblivious passerby. Daniel reemerged 15 minutes later, carting an impossible stack of plates. As he slid them onto a sideboard, he chanced another look. The boy still occupied the corner, head down, chalk flecks on his knuckles. Daniel wiped his palms on his apron, inhaled, and crossed the dining room. He stopped one respectful arm's length away, knelt so his eye level met Ethan's, and signed a hesitant hello. Ethan's head snapped up. Surprise lit his pale eyes like dawn flooding a chapel. Daniel's motions were clumsy, finger spelling that betrayed rusty fluency, but they were unmistakable. Alexis's hand froze over her water glass. She watched the stranger, but did not interrupt. Ethan signed back. HELLO. Daniel smiled with only half his mouth, as if afraid a full grin might shatter the moment, then signed. "Any?" The boy answered. "Ethan." Daniel touched his chest. "DNIL." Their silent conversation lasted all of 90 seconds before a senior waitress hissed Daniel's name from the pass. He jerked, mouthed sorry, and dashed away, but Ethan's posture remained aloft, shoulders lifted, eyes bright. He looked at Alexis, motioned rapid questions. "He knows signs? Why? Will he come back?" Alexis mouthed "We'll see," pride and ache colliding in her throat. Their food arrived, tomato bisque for Ethan, bouillabaisse for Alexis. While they ate, Daniel's gestures kept slipping between swinging kitchen doors, quick waves, an exaggerated wink, a thumbs up when Ethan demolished his soup. Alexis found herself waiting for those glimpses almost as much as her son did. After dessert, Ethan insisted on drawing one more picture. He sketched 3 stick figures, one tall in a doctor's coat, one small with a slate, one lean man holding a dishcloth like a flag. Above them, he wrote boat. Alexis swallowed. The child imagined them sailing somewhere beyond the harbor lights with this stranger. Half of her flinched. Half of her wondered if that meant hope. She tucked $100 bill beneath the sugar bowl and guided Ethan toward the exit. Daniel reappeared, panting, flour dust on his sleeves. Alexis thanked him aloud for speaking Ethan's language, while her son signed frantic goodbyes. Daniel replied in kind, rustiness dissolving under joy. Alexis glimpsed something simple and rare. A man who saw her boy before seeing anything else. That night, Alexis lay awake watching the Cooper River Bridge glow across the window. She told herself the evening was an anomaly, but morning arrived with Ethan tapping her shoulder, signing, "Can we see Daniel again?" The promise she'd failed suddenly felt within reach. Harper Biogen's boardroom smelled of glass and sleeplessness. At 9 sharp, Alexis chaired 2 patent reviews, a congressional briefing rehearsal, and a crisis communication drill. Yet all morning she replayed Ethan's laughter. At noon, she slammed her laptop closed mid-simulation and told her assistant to clear the afternoon schedule. She drove straight to Le Marin, arriving between lunch and dinner service when the lights hung dim and the bar smelled of lemon oil. Daniel was stacking wine crates. He looked up, startled, wiped his hands on his jeans. Alexis introduced herself fully this time and said she'd like to thank him properly. Daniel frowned, shook his head. "Talking to a kid isn't heroic," he said, voice soft as if afraid to echo in the empty dining room. Alexis asked how he knew ASL. He explained he'd grown up with a mother who lost her hearing to meningitis at 30. "Guess I never forgot," he added. Alexis asked whether he would consider tutoring Ethan weekly. "Paid, of course." Daniel exhaled. "I wash dishes, Dr. Harper. I rent a room above a bait shop. Are you sure you want me inside your life?" Alexis answered, "I need someone who sees him." "You did." She extended a card with her private number and told him to think it over. Before she reached the door, Daniel called. "When?" "Tomorrow evening," she said over her shoulder, half challenge, half dare. Daniel nodded. The next evening, the Harper brownstone on Rutledge Avenue smelled of fresh varnish and anxiety. Ethan waited by the foyer mirror for 20 minutes until Daniel arrived in a thrift store blazer that fit nowhere, clutching a paper bag of homemade snickerdoodles. On the bag he'd written in block letters, "For the first lesson." The lesson became a game. Ethan taught Daniel new biomedical terms in ASL. Daniel taught Ethan Charleston Marsh slang. At 9, Ethan fell asleep on the carpet mid-sign. Alexis walked Daniel to the porch where gold lamplight pooled over her lacquered heels and his scuffed boots. She thanked him again. Daniel said, "I'll come back any night you need." For 6 weeks he returned, sometimes tutoring, sometimes eating dinner. Low country boil Alexis burned the first time, red beans he cooked the next, always leaving before midnight. Ethan's signing bloomed. Alexis's voice loosened. The brownstone felt less like a fortress, more like a house. Alexis's world, however, contained watchers. One of them was Victoria Harper Grant, Alexis's older sister, a formidable attorney and board vice chair who had once described charity as a strategic liability. Victoria admired her sister's empire, but distrusted anything that might bend its trajectory. When she discovered, through a discreet driver, that Alexis was spending evenings with a white dishwasher, she found the dynamic combustible. Black biotech titan, white working-class tutor, deaf biracial child. Public relations nitroglycerin. Victoria confronted Alexis during a quarterly grievance audit. "Reputation is capital," she warned. "You're risking it on a sentimental whim." Alexis countered, "I'm safeguarding my son's joy." Victoria replied, "Joy isn't a legal argument." 2 days later, a packet from the South Carolina Family Court landed on Alexis's desk. Victoria was petitioning for co-guardianship of Ethan, citing Alexis's pattern of impulsive associations with unvetted individuals. Alexis's hands shook only once when she read the phrase unvetted individuals. She knew exactly which individual Victoria meant. That night, Alexis asked Daniel to meet on the Battery seawall. Wind whipped the Cooper's black surface into ribbons, and carriage horses clopped somewhere behind them. She handed him the legal notice. Daniel read it twice, eyes widening, freckles a-shining in moonlight. "She's coming after you because of me," he whispered. "She's coming because I let her think money protects Ethan more than authenticity," Alexis answered. She apologized for dragging him into a hurricane that was hers by birthright. Daniel said nothing for a long while, then asked, "What do you need?" "Truth," she replied. "In court. From you." Daniel's shoulders bent, as if absorbing invisible weight. Finally he said, "For Ethan, yes. For you, yes. But I won't become your shield while you remain behind it. Alexis had no reply. The hearing was set for 22 days later. The media learned of it in 12. Headlines spliced race, class, disability, empire. Black billionaire's sister sues for broken boy's safety. White dishwasher at center. Paparazzi nested outside the brownstone. Sponsors called Harper Biogen, anxious. Anonymous emails arrived. Some urging Alexis to stand tall, others venomous, calling Daniel opportunistic trash. Daniel quit Le Marin to avoid cameras at the back dock and found part-time work restoring fishing nets on the Folly Beach pier. 3 nights before the court date, someone shattered Daniel's upstairs window and left spray-painted words across his room. Stay in your place. Daniel phoned Alexis only after sweeping glass for an hour. He didn't want Ethan to sense the quake in his voice. Alexis begged him to move into the brownstones' carriage house until the hearing. Daniel hesitated until Ethan signed over FaceTime, PLESI. The next morning, Daniel arrived with one duffel. Alexis's house manager showed him the refurbished carriage studio, sun-bleached brick walls, a small kitchenette. Daniel laid his only spare shirt in the wardrobe and stared at mahogany furniture worth more than his lifetime earnings. That afternoon, the security team found Victoria's courier photographing Daniel's license plate. Alexis confronted her sister in a conference room overlooking the Ashley River. The argument could have fermented hurricanes. Victoria insisted she was protecting the company and Ethan. Alexis called it a hostile takeover of motherhood. They parted beneath fluorescent lights that buzzed louder than either voice. Hearing day dawned crystalline, the skyline a sawtooth horizon of spires and cranes. The courthouse smelled of bleach and tension. Reporters camped beside metal detectors. Alexis wore an emerald suit that had graced Forbes's cover the year before. Daniel wore a navy blazer Ethan had outgrown, the sleeves a shade too short. Ethan carried his slate and chalk. Victoria's attorney opened with a slide deck of social media comments, paparazzi photos, and a highlighted credit report showing Daniel's debts from medical bills he'd paid during his mother's last illness. My client worries that a man facing insolvency could exploit a vulnerable child, the attorney purred. Alexis's counsel presented statements from Ethan's audiologist praising his language surge, from tutors validating Daniel's commitment, from neighbors describing how often Ethan now laughed on the porch. Then Daniel took the stand. His voice trembled at first. He admitted his debts, because funerals aren't free, admitted he washed dishes to pay them, admitted he never finished college. What I won't admit, he said, is that poverty equals danger. My pockets are empty. That's public record. My integrity is full. That's between me and the boy who trusts my hands. He described the first night, a deaf child invisible in a room of noise, the simple hello that changed 2 lives. He described Ethan teaching him chromosomal jargon in ASL, Alexis burning Low Country boil. They paid me for lessons, yes, he concluded, looking at Victoria. They paid me with my belongings. Finally, Ethan walked to the witness chair. The judge allowed him to sign while a certified interpreter, Daniel had insisted the court hire one, not rely on him, voiced. Ethan signed about boats and chalk dust and how Daniel's apartment smelled like bread. He signed, slowly so the courtroom understood. When people talk with their mouths only, I hear nothing. When Daniel talks with his hands, I hear everything. Silence smothered the gallery. Even Victoria's expression flickered. The judge recessed for 20 minutes, returned with a ruling that read partly like case law, partly like poetry about the language of dignity. He denied the guardianship petition and commended Daniel's role in Ethan's development. The decision rippled through Charleston papers by sunset. Court upholds mother's custody, praises dishwasher's devotion. Outside, cameras whirred. Alexis thanked the judge publicly, declined further comment, and shepherded Ethan to their car, Daniel close behind. Victoria walked the other direction, high heels clicking like a coda. At the brownstone, Ethan insisted on a celebration. They ordered pizza thick with cheese, blue bubbles on the balcony, watched barges slide toward the Atlantic. Alexis excused herself after Ethan slept and crossed the garden to the carriage house. Daniel opened the door before she knocked, as if he'd waited all night. She said, I've spent years acquiring solutions. You arrived and gave us answers. Money can't translate. Daniel stepped back, letting her enter. Moonlight pooled on the hardwood. Alexis continued, voice quiet, stay. Not as an employee only. As what you already are. Daniel's eyes brimmed. People will still talk. Then let them waste their breath while we spend our lives, she whispered. He took her hand. Fingertips met palm like harbor lights merging on black water. Months folded into themselves after that. Daniel split his time between helping a marine carpenter rebuild a century-old sloop and tutoring Ethan. Alexis kept Harper Biogen steady while surprising analysts by launching an accessibility initiative named Project Lighthouse. Every quarterly call she credited my son's teachers, formal and otherwise. Wall Street scribes assumed she meant Ivy League consultants. Alexis meant Daniel. One humid Saturday, Ethan and Daniel christened the restored sloop at a dock in Mount Pleasant. They named her Quiet Victory, Ethan's choice, chalk printed on the transom. Alexis broke sparkling cider over the bow. Reporters captured the photograph that later anchored a Time feature, a black biotech magnate, a white bowtie-turned guardian, and a laughing biracial child signing victory under a gull-chipped sky. The internet cycled opinions, but eventually quieted. Controversies age quickly when they meet unbroken joy. Victoria resigned her board seat, moving to Paris to recalibrate. From afar, she mailed Ethan a compass with Braille cardinal points. She enclosed a note, "May your world stay wide." Alexis forgave her in a letter she never sent. One windless evening, Alexis stood on the sloop's deck as Daniel tightened rigging. Ethan perched at the helm, practicing star sign names, Orion, Cassiopeia, while twilight unspooled mauve ribbons across the harbor. Alexis asked Daniel, "Do you remember the first thing you said in court?" "Pockets empty, integrity full," he recalled, cheeks flushing. She stepped closer, brushing a calloused knuckle. "Our life isn't perfect, nor safe from storms. But I'd rather sail in rough water with truth than anchor in calm with fear." Daniel nodded. "Then let's keep sailing." Ethan turned, reading their lips enough to grin, and signed, "Full speed." Alexis answered with the crisp sign Daniel had taught her months ago, "Unfurl," then loosed the line. Quiet Victory slipped from the pier like a secret finally believed, prow pointing toward the Atlantic, toward whatever horizon waits for people brave enough to speak in the language each heart understands.